Next up on Pax, the President addressed the nation earlier today over the incident now known as the Battle of Laland. Thanks to the military actions taken by the brave men and women of the United Terran States Navy, Horatio Colony and all its people are safe. But it was not without cost. The Navy traded blows against the alien menace who attacked the colony, and this has led to many losses for the crews involved. As part of the address, the President stated that he grieved with those families affected, and would be writing official condolences while also awarding medals to all those who died in the incident for their sacrifice. I'm sure the people of Horatio will never forget it. Mars's governor announced today that thanks to the decade-long efforts, the Red Planet is no longer the hostile place it has historically been seen as. He gave a speech today outside the domes of Mars in a civilian uniform with no extravehicular suit required. Taking the first breaths of oxygen and drinking the first Martian water, the governor, Alpha Condry, has been a big proponent for the effort, and is seen to have led the way in terraforming Mars. Now that is all coming to a head, the people of Mars are preparing to make good use of their now habitable world. With waves of colonists expected to arrive, it's about to get a lot busier on Mars. Hello and welcome back to the next episode of Aurora 4X Pax Americana, episode number 15, and we're here in June 29th, 1998, after the, successful defense of Lalnid 21185. In the aftermath of that battle, we are now moving to secure the system, moving additional maintenance facilities and additional ships in to protect what we have there. I don't want what happened earlier happening again, and so we're going to be doing a few things. One of those is, as you can see on screen now, setting up new surface orbit weapons with 20cm lasers. These lasers will hopefully give us the range which we surely lacked when they engaged our surface to orbit weapons. We still have the Triton system providing defense, and we're making good progress in terms of shipping in the additional maintenance facilities to support the carrier. With that being said, if you are looking to support the channel or get involved, head over to my Discord. As I talked about in a couple episodes before, we are doing a D&D style experience / there's RP being hosted by one of my viewers, and we're making really good progress on that. So if you want to go ahead and check it out, you can do that in the description and at me or contact me over on the Discord. So a few things are coming into overhead at the moment. With our ion drive technology, we are beginning to refit our new freighters. We are also beginning to build our new ships. The first Red Sea class vessels will be built, that being those two vessels being very important for our planned future expeditions. As we start to reach the edges of our known territory, we need to explore further and further out. And to do so, we need protection. That's why we're designing ourselves the Size 12 SIM 12A missile. This missile will be capable of hopefully destroying any enemy raiders who attempt to stop our exploration ships from doing their duty. It will also be used on our new corvettes, which are nearly ready to be built, which will provide us with a better capability than we currently have in terms of defending our frontier worlds. So overall, we're doing pretty well in terms of production. Our biggest issue right now is our galacite shortage, which we'll get to in a moment. But in terms of actual design, research and shipbuilding, we're making a lot of really good progress. We're beginning the retool for the Aberdeen and also for the Decatur, which is the Corvette and the freighter respectively. On top of the galacite issue, we also need to expand out our fuel production. And so we are going to probably be looking at much higher fuel production needs to really catapult ourselves forward. We are setting up our fuel transport fleets back up and reopening the system of Lalnid to commercial shipping. As previously we obviously told all ships to not enter the system, otherwise they might have been destroyed. But you can really see that our galacite situation is quite dire. We have under 10,000 tons of the resource available. And so expanding our collection of the resource is going to be vitally important. We just completed our shipbuilding rate 560 BP, so that is going to improve our shipbuilding. However, that also means quicker drain of resources. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword there. Now we're going to go ahead and design ourselves our 200mm surface-mounted ultraviolet laser turret or laser gun, which will provide us with our primary surface orbit weapon capability. Another thing that I'm going to be instituting for our planetary defense battalions is that they will have construction equipment so that they can fortify further than they previously could. This should hopefully improve the effectiveness of our surface-to-orbit weapon capability, which during the Battle of Lalnid proved to be ineffectual at best. Yes, we disabled 1 or 2 enemy ships, but we lost all surface-to-orbit weapons in the engagement, which is too high for what we're building. And that's why we're investing more heavily and refocusing our efforts there. Of course, to do that, we need minerals, and that's going to take a lot of resources. So we're going to be expanding towards 56 KSP, and that means we have finished up our stabilization through Struve 2398, and we need to get through to that system through Delta Carinae. So we're going to be stabilizing a jump point through to Delta Carinae so that we can support ourselves in that direction. As I said, we are coming up kind of against the outer edges of where we're exploring to. It's really quite a big process in terms of exploration and exploitation. So our mineral transport fleets are still now moving resources back and forth, and we've stabilized most of our resources from Saurium to Corundium. The biggest issue is Gallicite and Uranium. These 2 resources can be mined, and we do have areas to mine them from. However, it's still relatively slow going because we don't yet have the necessary infrastructure in place. Terra Nova thankfully has a large deposit of Gallicite at good accessibility. However, it's going to take quite a lot of people to man the mines and also to move those mines over to the appropriate areas to begin that process. As part of that, we need to have more efficient and better freighters. So we're going to begin to auto-refit Freighter Aberdeen Block 1s to the Block 2 variant with the new ion drive technology and the more efficient engines. This should significantly reduce our fuel footprint for standard movements of industry and infrastructure around, and be very, very important to our efforts overall. We're also going to be improving our tankers as they also move fuel around quite excessively, and is very important to get right in that regard. So we have freighter fleets coming back and coming in. Some of them are remaining at Earth for that auto refit process, some are not. And we finished the production of our initial batch of SIM-4C2s, and we're building SIM-8Cs and SIM-3As. Of course, we'll need to build many missiles. We still have large, decent stockpiles of older generation missiles, which we can still make use of, obviously. Though we want to use the newer generation because their effectiveness is going to be significantly better. I'm currently looking at the terraforming situation. We're currently waiting on Terra Nova's oxygen to reach a point at which it will become habitable, as well as Yorktown's oxygen as well. Both of those are going to take quite a bit of time because the planets are respectively quite big. Again, more fuel harvesting, transportation between things. We're moving fuel from harvesters in system to Nelson base, which is important. And we see here that our mining operations are kind of coming to a close on some of these asteroids, so we'll need to move those orbital mining platforms over to some of the other asteroids to continue our mining operations in system. So we are building a lot of Ankara class orbital mining platforms, but we are closing out the amount that we're building of them because we're running out of asteroids to actually mine from. We are also going to be establishing, as I previously talked about, a new fuel harvester station. So this is going to mine us 4.5 million litres of fuel per harvester, and it's going to have a total of 80 modules on it. This is going to be what we're going to be using in the future, so it's a much larger fuel harvester, but it's needed for our massive amounts of fuel consumption that we really are going through. And you will see later this episode how our fuel consumption is kind of an issue, just overall. Yeah, definitely, it's definitely a problem, that's for sure. And this episode is we're definitely looking at more of a chiller episode. We're kind of getting down from the big combat we had in the last couple episodes, and kind of refocusing ourselves at logistics and improving what lessons we learn from that engagement, and the needs of the Empire and of the civilization. And that is more resources, better defense systems, better surface orbit weapon capability, quicker reaction times, and salvaging, of course. And we're going to be focusing on getting that salvage from all these wrecks, which can be of really big importance to us across the board. Something that is also coming to a head is we are beginning to finish off our upgrades of shipyards, which will reduce our uranium usages and will allow us to begin retooling for the newest ships. There's the SIM-3As done, and we're going to be refocusing that. I want to start building the SIM-12s because they'll be needed for the new corvettes we just ordered. We ordered 5 Decorator class corvettes, which are going to be very, very, very important for our purposes, because we're going to need to put them all across colonies. And what we'll do is, with our destroyers or with our corvettes, when we get on new generations of ships, we will scrap an equivalent amount of the old generation of ships in favor of the new generation. But we will still keep those old ships around until we have, exactly enough to replace them. So we'll slowly be phasing out these older ships and putting in the newer generation of vessels for our purposes. And this means that we don't have any gaps in our defense systems, but it's going to be a more gradual process. For something like the corvettes, we can rapidly build them, so it's less of an issue. We can build 5 of them every year, practically speaking, or every 6 months. It's a very quick construction effort to get these quick, cheap corvettes out with missiles. The missiles is actually probably one of the biggest expenses of them. It's another like 50% of the actual cost of the ship. We're also now transporting minerals from Terra Nova, as we previously discussed. They do have those galacite reserves that we are currently mining in some amount with our 40 mines on the planet. However, it's not enough, but we do need to start shipping over that galacite anyway, as all galacite is important. Our first salvager has completed, and it's very slow, but it's going to do its job. We're going to dispatch that immediately to Laland 21185 and get that salvaging the wrecks there. That should get us galacite and other resources, as well as technological data and various components, which we can then decipher for additional information on electronic warfare, cloaking devices, and whatnot. Our progress is still going well on our fighter production, by the way, and we are building like 200 comets. It's going pretty well. We're nearly finished with our Hawks, and here is our 200mm surface-mounted laser array, which we're building as STO3. We'll be building those in batches, and then we're also building a new engineering battalion, which will be assigned to those formations to dig them in harder, so they get hit a lot less than they currently were getting hit on Horatio. As we saw, it was relatively easy for our surface weapons to get pretty much blown to pieces. So we're going ahead and we're building a lot of STO3s and a lot of STO1s, and then we're going to combine those into our primary planetary defense battalions as required. But that's still going to be quite a bit of time out, that's for sure. We should have our first stellar fusion reactor done by 2002. Hopefully, by 2010, we should have the first magnetoplasma drive available. So that would be, a good 20 years after we first developed ion drive technology. And that will allow us to start thinking about building magnetoplasma drive ships in the 2010s, 2020s, some period around there. We start construction of initial batch of 100 SIM-12As for our exploration ships and for our corvettes. Very important missiles, which are going to be incredibly impactful going forward. Research labs free up, and we do start some research into new ceramic composites, because it's going to be very important that we get new armor generations going so that we can protect ourselves further, but also reduce the amount of volume needed to fit all those components into a ship. We're going to be waiting another year at least though for our new exploration class vessels, so that'll be exciting to see for the new millennia, new millennia exploration project, that's sure. And as we can see here, we have just finished up our capacity upgrade for our 60,000 ton yard, and so we're going to begin to retool for the North America class. But what we're waiting for is the magazine, which is still not being researched yet. The 3750 capacity magazines that hold the ammunition for the F-120 Hawks, which are going to be used on the first North America class carriers. And they are truly a step up from our last generation carriers. The North America class, slinging at 60,000 tons, can carry the most advanced fighters with significant payload ordnance on board, and at a fleet speed, a good fleet speed as well, being able to carry a total of 36 Hawk class 500-ton fighters, as well as an array of very important search and recovery, fuel in situ fighters, and various other vessels that are incredibly important to our military. Our Bunker Hill yard finishes up. We don't actually have a new frigate design. That is something that we will have to obviously work on. We don't yet have it. So, but we have the yard ready to go either way, which is always nice to have in preparation. Checking out some of the current mineral situations on some of these asteroids, we are going to again need to move some of the mineral mining around, as that is a bit of an issue. And so we're moving around these fuel harvesters, we're moving around these orbital mining platforms and terraformers, and all this stuff that's very, very needed just across the board, generally speaking. So our tugs are doing just that as we move fuel harvesters around. So we're taking these 4 orbital mining platforms, and we're going to move those to one of the asteroids. That's 80 automated mines in total for them. Quite the number, that's to say the least. So we're going to go ahead and set them up to refuel and resupply. And increment along further. We complete research into the new larger ion drive, which is going to be needed. Though we don't yet put it on anything. Though we do set up the new Block 2 Asphalt class, as well as the new Block 2 Phosphane class long range and short range tanker, respectively. So here's the Block 2 with the new engine, and it makes it significantly more fuel efficient, which means that these tankers are a lot better at their job of just shipping fuel around every so often as needed. So we're going to auto refit the older propanes into the new ones to make them more fuel efficient and more useful overall. In terms of costing, like to refit like one of the existing freighters to a new freighter, it costs about a little less than half as much as it would to build a new freighter. So for every new freighter we can build like 2.3. We can do 2.3 refits. So the refitting process is definitely worthwhile. And you know, there was also the question of, oh, you should build new ships. But I think the refit process is definitely worth it when it reduces the fuel consumption and requirements so drastically. It's such a big benefit in that regard. We did just see our first 3 Canada Austria-class vessels come under construction, and we are scrapping the Indochina, Cayman Islands, and the El Salvador, which were the first 3 destroyers. We're going to scrap those and we are going to go ahead and replace them with the new Austria-class Belgium and the Deutschland. All three of those are then going to enter training with their new SIM-8CC missiles, and they'll be on standby for any needs as required. So we'll kind of have this process of build 3 destroyers, scrap 3 destroyers, build 3 destroyers, scrap 3 destroyers. That's going to be the kind of process we'll go through for most of our replacements, for many of our fighters, and yeah, that's going to be the best way forward, I think. We have now entered 1999, it's 13th of February 1999, as we fast approach the year 2000, making it 22 years after the start of the game in 1978. We've done quite a bit, to be honest, in the last 20 years, 22 years, that's for sure. And I can't imagine what we'll be looking like in the next 20. When we reach, maybe our current year, which is the year 2023, which is in 24 years from our current time here. As you can see, our Galaxite reserves are reaching a critical issue. We are sitting at 4,500 tons, and so I have to stop maintenance supply production and begin shipping resources in as quickly as possible, ideally. Our salvagers are now coming into the system of here of Lalnid to get these wrecks. We're going to start with the large 20,000 ton enemy ship that we destroyed, as that's likely to have the most goodies on it that we want to take back and analyze. But we will eventually salvage all of those vessels. So Terra Nova Prime, the biggest issue is temperature, which we are sorting, and then Yorktown, the biggest issue is oxygen. Mars, however, has now reached a completely habitable point. It's a step world with 20% hydrosphere and the oxygen potassium atmosphere that allows people to live on it. So, as part of that, we're going to begin to move millions of people to Mars. For what purpose? Well, to man the stock exchanges. We're going to be shipping over a lot of financial centers to Mars. We're going to put on a financial center hub, and we are going to build more financial centers to increase our wealth situation, because our wealth is currently rapidly declining, and we need to expand our racial economy, which we are having plenty of issues with, that's for sure. We also are researching far and far away ahead. We are going to go for the newer Strength 6 missiles, or the better warhead technology to shrink that warhead down even further, miniaturize it into a good place. We are, again, also refitting, which is beautiful. It means I don't have to worry about it. We're just refitting the older ships, the Aberdeen Block 2s. And our salvager has now begun to work. It's going to take about 20 days to salvage that 20,000 ton wreck. And then once that's done, we are going to continue to salvage and then ship those resources and tech data back to Earth and have a look at it. Deutschland getting in some training, repairing its engines. And our civilians, which I haven't really looked at too much recently, are expanding, which is always nice to see. So we got the wreck, and we got a lot of things, which is a lot better technology than what we have. Better fire control ranges, cloaking device, auxiliary control systems, all sorts of stuff which are going to be very, very helpful in speeding up our overall research ourselves. Something else which we have lacked in is electronic warfare, and so I've begun research, or I will begin research, of electronic warfare technology. As we begin to salvage these old wrecks, we start to think about things like, should we use cloaking devices? Should we use more electronic warfare capabilities? And the answer to those things is yes. The next thing is our fuel situation is, how do we say, not great. And so I have to do an emergency shipping of fuel back to Earth using our long-range tankers, which are sitting in orbit doing nothing. And I order the refineries to start up again to begin burning or creating more thorium fuel needed to keep ourselves afloat. Because without fuel, we can't actually build missiles. Kind of important when you think about it. Missiles, really big part of our military. And so thorium production and thorium fuel harvesting is a massively impactful thing. Salvager 1, though, making great progress. I'm going to set out to auto-salvage the nearest wreck and do what it needs to do. and it's getting itself done very, 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 very well, to say the least. Even though it only goes 300 kilometers per second, which is ungodly slow. I'm not sure why I made it that slow. That is definitely a mistake from my part. But with that all being said, we are advancing, and our fuel situation has been dealt with, which is good. But it's really shown the need that we need for more fuel harvesters. I feel like we're always on the teetum of shortages and issues. Our production rates just need to be increased more and more and more. And getting more Gallicite is going to be really, really important going forward here. Because we have like hundreds of thousands of tons of some of these other resources, but some of them are just such a problem for us. Yeah, such a problem indeed, that it really causes us a lot of problems. But our civilians seem to be doing just fine. They're launching colony ships every bloody month, it feels like, at this rate. Which is quite amusing with how much they're doing. Now, with our Freighter Fleet 1, we're going to be moving those financial centers I talked about to Mars, as we begin to grow Mars to about 50 million people, is where I want Mars to be. And that will give us probably a working population of 25 million, 30 million people, which we can have man the financial centers. Each financial center takes 50,000 people, which means that a million people can man 20 financial centers. So 25 million people can man approximately 500 financial centers, which is nearly the amount we have on Earth. Mars also has a lot of terraformers still on it. Of course, we probably need to either move those away or just have them continue their terraforming work in terms of making Mars a nicer world to live on. Make it have a higher hydrosphere, more water, have more oxygen in the atmosphere, more nitrogen, all that good stuff. Here are our new Corvette Patrol Squadron, so we're going to be replacing the old squadron on Terra Nova with the new Decatur class Corvettes. They're using their new SIM-12A missiles. And so for a lot of these planets, we'll either have a carrier providing support with some corvettes or frigate, support, or we will just have corvettes. And for our initial colonies and areas, corvettes are small enough where they can be supported by these small outposts. And so that's why we use corvettes on the outer edges of the frontier, because they're relatively easy to provide defense. And so what we'll probably see happen is these more established worlds like Terra Nova, like Horatio, will have destroyers or frigates or carriers in orbit or cruiser or whatever, while places like Yorktown and more further out colonies will just have those 5 initial corvettes that will provide system-wide patrol and defense. And yes, that means that they won't be able to defend against a massive attack, but we can't provide massive amounts of resources to every single colony. But those 5 corvettes should still be able to pack a serious punch and do some serious damage to anything that comes against them in small, low-intensity levels, which raiders are. We only have we are dealing with a fuel issue though, because they didn't have their full fuel load for some reason, but we're getting a tanker moved over to go and refuel them. Shouldn't be too much of an issue at all. And we're getting close to the year 2000 as we enter September of 1999. It's going to be a year still until we get those Red Sea class vessels completed, which is feels like an eternity away. And we're getting ready to build our first Carpathian class cruiser. We're going to be building around 6 to 8 of these vessels, which again is a lot of resources when you think about it. And their job is going to be protecting our carrier groups. So 2 cruisers per carrier group, and specifically our big carrier groups with our 60,000 ton vessels. We want to protect our investment as best as we can. What we have just seen though is an enemy vessel, and so we'll go into our live commentary here. Hope you guys have been enjoying, and let's get into that live commentary and then finally wrap the episode up. We have a hostile enemy contact. For some reason, Aquarion 011 has reappeared on sensors despite the fact that it's been disabled and we lost contact with it after the Battle of Laland. We're going to dispatch the Triton to go and immediately provide, or immediately deal with that enemy vessel. We're not within range of our fighters, but the Triton should be able to deal with it handily. So let us go and grab the Triton and order her to begin moving towards the waypoint next to the target. That'll take approximately 2 days to reach, and we'll see if they pop off or pop back on to our sensor contacts or not. They have disappeared once again. I'm not sure why we got a ping that they were there. It might have to do with our new deep space tracking stations that we've been moving into the system. I'll have to actually check that sensor situation. No, let's go have a look at our display. So if we go over a look here, we can actually see, yeah, we do have a pretty large sensor signature to see most of the stuff around here. We are closing in. We're 18 hours out of the local area. Let me check the active sensors are actually on. They are, which is good. And let's head in and hopefully deal with this threat. Okay, enemy ship has been detected as we previously saw. I'm going to order that the Triton launch Fighter Strike Wing 3 towards the enemy target. And we're going to get ready with those railguns to open fire and finish it off without using any missiles, ideally. That'll be 2 hours until we arrive. Twelve minutes. Okay, closing in. Get ready to open up. Set all ships to open fire immediately. Quarion class vessel. Open fire control. Assign to the fleet. We need to make sure that they are not on sync fire though. Fleet sync fire off. Okay, we're closing in. Again, 10,000 kilometer range, so it's very, very small. Okay, we took fire. We lost a comet. But we are now opening up. One of the comets unfortunately did fall. But we're finishing off the enemy vessel. Secondary power explosion occurred. Looks like we disarmed it. No, we haven't. We lost another comet. Enemy ship down. 2 comets. 2 of the first ever comets lost in service. We are going to immediately order replacements. So let's go ahead and do 182. And I'm going to order the strike going back to the carrier. And we can use the reserves to replace the losses. So move to Horatio military base and refuel for us. Make sure that we need to cease fire. And that's the combat situation dealt with. What we will do though is we will use those reserves. So I'm going to move 2 of those into here. There we go. So we still have those operational fighter wings working just fine. And I'll see you guys in the next episode, as that is the end of today's episode as we hit September 8th, 1999, and we look towards the conclusion of the millennia and the start of a new one, the new possibilities for everyone involved. Or we do have someone to rescue there. So again, I'll see you guys next time.